everybody? It's the Outlaw John Rocha here with my reaction and spoiler review to episode 2 for The Last of Us called Infected. Now, before I jump in, like I said, this is a spoiler review. I will be spoiling what we got in episode 2. So if you haven't seen it yet, turn around and go back and watch the episode and then come on back and hang out with me. Before I start, I remind you all to please subscribe to the channel down below. If you're liking the content we're doing here on the Outlaw Nation channel, going into our 3rd year, would love for you all to come aboard and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the content we do just like this here on the channel. All right, Last of Us, where we ended last episode, we saw that Ellie and Joel are now together with Tess. They're heading out there to get Ellie to the right people so that Joel and Tess can get their battery and go and look for Tommy. That's basically where we ended things. Of course, we've got a great exposition about everything about this world, or enough to give us a foundation for this world to walk into this second episode. This second episode was fantastic, I thought, in the construction of how it told the story. We go back in time to Indonesia, back to 2003. We meet this doctor. She's essentially called in by these generals while she's having lunch. She comes in and she is asked to look at this body, asked to look at what's going on with this body. She is a professor dealing with fungus, and she reacts to this saying, wait, this can't happen. This cannot be in human beings. Then when she sees it, we cut to her sitting out there talking with the general, and she is absolutely shaken. And the general says, we brought you in because we want you to come up with a vaccine. And she says, there is no medicine. There is no vaccine for this. So giving us another, another plank in the foundation of this story, or another brick in the foundation of the story, telling us there is no vaccine. There is no way out of this, or so they thought in 2003. And he asks her, well, what should we do? And she says to bomb the city and everyone in it, and then asks to be taken home to be with her family. So what a powerful beginning for this episode, getting into it immediately, giving us a little more background, but also giving us this feeling of hopelessness about this all, how it can't be cured, it can't be fixed. And of course, Ellie is going to counter that when we go into the present day of the show, that is, and we find out that Ellie is the one who actually can be the possible cure to all of this. And speaking of Ellie, we cut to her waking up, and we see Tess and Joel looking over at her and watching her like hawks, because of course they just found out that she got bit but hasn't been infected. Joel is wary of this, but eventually Tess, as she asks her questions, as she kind of drills down into a little bit more of Ellie, her maternal instinct comes out, but also this thing about Tess comes out. And the Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann spoke about this in the after episode, that she starts to glimpse the possibility of some hope in this world, and that this could be turned around in some way, shape, or form. Joel is still skeptical, but Tess eventually convinces him to let Ellie come with them, and that they're going to go and do this thing and go and exchange her for the products that they need. And what do they care if she's, the cure or not the cure? They just want the girl. So if they take the girl, we'll get our supplies and we'll go on and go find Tommy. That's basically her logic and her reasoning. They head on out to this hotel, go inside of this hotel. Ellie does some fun stuff with the hotel desk stuff, and then they head up to the room. We see Tess go around because things are blocked off. She opens it up, and we open out onto this balcony, and we see all the infected lying there on the ground. What an incredible visual, seeing them just lying on the ground, rolling around. I don't know if you noticed, but as the sun went by, they kind of rolled around, or light went by, they kind of rolled around. It was so interesting to see this kind of mass, mass humanity, for what's left of them, humanity, rolling around and moving together. And that's where Ellie kind of figures out that they're connected. Tess gives her the 411 on the fact that they're connected, and that gives us more to kind of sink into, because as Ellie is discovering this, we are discovering this, which is kind of a smart move here by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann to turn Ellie into the audience. Ellie is discovering this world. She's essentially been sheltered a majority of her life. She obviously got bit, and we find out in a little bit how she got bit at the mall, with the QZ mall. And she hints that she has faced or seen at least a version of these things in her past, but overall doesn't have that much information about the infected. So we hear Tess give her some of that information. Of course, we are getting that information through Ellie as well. They decide they got to go through this museum, and this is an incredibly well done scene, full of suspense. We see the fungus outside, and it's all dried up, so it won't be infected. But the visual of the fungus, I mean, everybody involved in the production of this should be lauded for the way they kind of bring the tension and the drama and the horror of this right there with the design of the fungus, the way it looks on the wall, you know, and just kind of the way it looks on the stairs and everything. And Joel checks it that it's dried out, so he leads them into the museum. And I thought this was really interesting because we're seeing, in essence, the beginnings of this country, right? And in the Boston Museum, we're seeing the beginnings of this country, where the Declaration of, you know, all this stuff, the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, you know, the Revolutionary War. Boston is symbolic of all of that. And so seeing them walk in and seeing these things that symbolize the beginning of this country, while they are glimpsing the possible end of this country because of these spores, or so not spores rather, but because of this fungus that's spreading, is a really interesting juxtaposition when you're watching, or dichotomy when you're watching this particular scene. They eventually get up into a room here. They see, well, before they do though, Ellie sees a fresh kill, for lack of a better term, there, lying against the wall, lying in the corner there of the wall, and is just completely been scratched up or slashed up. And she says, "I've never seen anything like that. What would do something like this?" And we see Tess and Joel get immediately scared about what that possibility is, because they know what it is. And we're going to find out what it is when we go to the second floor here. When things kind of cave in, that noise sparks these two clickers to show up. And so for fans of the games, there it is, the clickers showing up for the first time. And they are just as scary as I've heard some of my friends who've played the game tell me they are in the game. The sound design for them I thought was fantastic. The movement of them is really interesting. Craig Mazin said in that after episode little mini doc that they found actors who love the game to play these clickers and really give it an authenticity, which I thought really worked to ramp up the tension or ratchet up the tension and the horror of this yet again. And the back and forth and the action and everything, and Joel moving slowly. It's really smart because they're incorporating elements of the video game, how you move in the video games, going slow, hiding behind certain things, waiting for the clickers to show up, attacking them when you can, trying to hide from them when you can. And Joel tells us that the clickers can't see, but they can hear everything, which is very reminiscent of A Quiet Place, which you saw in A Quiet Place as well. So not to, you know, it's just that it's reminiscent of it. And so we see Joel and Ellie and Tess try to move around here without making too much noise. But eventually Ellie, because she's never seen one of these things with the fungus and the head ripped open and whatever she alluded to in conversation earlier, we see more that happen in her reaction to it. And then it kicks off this awesome fight sequence. They eventually escape after Joel kills them both with Tess's help. And as they head outside, we see Tess has got a twisted ankle. Ellie comes across the bridge. We see Joel and Ellie standing there, which is a nice little moment, I think, for those who are fans of the video game, to see those two kind of looking in profile when we know those are the two people we're going to be following. Tess rolls up. And after Tess berates him, though, Tess tells him, "Can you just believe in something for once, Joel? Can you just have some glimpse of hope? Can you have some hope?" And this is what this episode really did well, is that it gave you the idea that there was no hope, and just when there was no hope, a little bit of hope showed up. How would you react to the possibility of hope? Some people shut down to the possibility of hope because they don't want to believe, because it hurts too much to lose that hope. Other people need that hope so that they can keep going, so that others can keep going, so that something about their lives can mean something if they let that hope thrive, or they help that hope succeed or come to fruition. So I thought that was a really nice a thing to throw into this episode, the back and forth there with Joel and Tess. And then eventually Tess is the one that's like, "Come on, we got to climb down." They climb down and they head on over to this area where they're supposed to be waiting for them, where the Firefly is supposed to be waiting for them, and they're not there. And so they're like, "Well, what happened here?" Joel goes up first to the truck, opens it, sees the blood, and he suspects, okay, they've been attacked. Sees the dude under the car with the flies buzzing, opens the back of the truck. You expect some stuff to jump out, or any of the infected jump out. They don't. Tess comes around. She's a little harried right now. She's a little frantic, like, what's going on? What's the deal? We see, Ellie sees the blood going up to the stairs. Ellie lets Tess and Joel know about that. And then Tess grabs Ellie and then yanks her up the stairs. They go into the building there. Joel follows behind protesting. And then we see all the people who've been killed, who were supposed to be waiting for them. And Joel tells us what happened. One got infected, and then they all just turned on each other and killed each other. Tess starts looking for a map and knocking everybody over. And I thought it was a nice moment because that ratchets up the tension as well, because you're wondering, is one of these things going to come to life and bite her or kill her or anything like that? That's not what happens. Ellie suspects, because of Tess's just frantic pace at trying to get stuff done and her snapping at Joel, that she's infected. And sure enough, she is. Tess shows Joel. Joel, you can tell he's just heartbroken, but he's still steel right now because he's a survivor and he's been hardened by the 20 years he's had to survive in this insane world. And Tess tells him, you got to keep going with this. You got to go with her. You got to save her. For God's sakes, do something for us, to redeem us, because if she is the key, then everything we've done can get washed away, because she will turn things around, turn everything back to normal, and we can save this world. And if we can save this world, why won't you try? So just pushing him to get past this thing. And look, a lot of us have that in our lives sometimes, where we just get so rigid about something, or don't want to try, or scared to try, or have tried before and been burnt so many times before, so we're scared to do it because we've already concocted or created these walls and this insular existence where we don't have to care, where we just have to focus on the things we have to do. We can care occasionally, but not care too much. And certainly that's what Tess is trying to appeal to Joel, and kind of break through his walls, crack his walls a little bit, to get him to understand the importance of the mission that he has been handed. Eventually Joel gets it, grabs Ellie, and they what happens is that we hear we see one of the recently killed people come to life. Joel shoots it in the head. Joel shoots him in the head, and that is the thing that sparks communication to all the other ones that have been infected. And of course, we remember earlier in the episode how Tess was telling Ellie that these things are connected more than you know. They're connected through the underground, and that stuff miles away or distances away, if something happens to one of those infected in one area, they can signal the other infected to come and be there. So it just you see that come to fruition. So a great job in the construction here of payoffs, of little seeds being planted and immediately getting payoffs for them later on in the episode, with Ellie in the infected situation and seeing Tess get infected, with the idea of the underground stuff. And we also hear that Tess tells Ellie that what that scientist recommended at the beginning of the episode did come to fruition, that they bombed a number of the major cities, and in some of the cities it worked, and in some of the cities it didn't. So I like that we're getting a little bit more of the world building and the history of what's happened here over the last 20 years, since 2003, when all of this popped off. So I like that we get that. Ellie and Joel run off. Tess is there, and we hear the sounds of them running towards. It's a really chilling sound. They eventually break through. Tess is trying to light, and her lighter won't light, and because she's knocked down gas, and there's all these grenades and bombs and all this ammunition everywhere. So Joel and Ellie run out. Ellie is mad. She's protesting. She says, we can't leave her behind. It's clearly not understanding the situation and the way it is. And then eventually those things run in. One of them sees her, which stops a few of them. They all start marching towards her, and one guy comes up to Tess, and the fungi sticking out the what do they call? I forget what they called it. What Craig Mazin called it in the after episode mini doc there, but it got myocopia or something comes out, and he kisses her as a way of transferring it, and as a last ditch thing, she finally lights it and blows, which you would imagine just about everybody up who came in to that building there. Joel and Ellie see that. Joel holds for just a few beats to look at it and walks off, and Ellie is standing there for just a little bit, and she walks off as well. So just a really powerful episode overall. And wait, Tess says something to Bill and Frank's take Ellie to Bill and Frank. And I'm sure those of you who play the game, you know who Bill and Frank are. We see it teased. That Bill and Frank are coming up in the next episode. Nick Offerman, one of the characters there. I think Frank there. So going to be curious to see what role they play as someone who hasn't played the game, what role they will play in this. Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann said in that post-doc as well that they changed some things for this episode, for the world overall that they created here, and transferring it from the video game to this TV series. They got rid of the spores, the ability of the spores to be the thing that kind of spreads this thing. so they could have more motion in the show. And they came up with the idea of the fungus being connected to each other in, as he said, in the wood wide web, and where something can affect one area of the fungus and then will chemically signal another area of the fungus, over vast distances. So something that's based in truth, they brought into the show, and I think it really does work in the show, especially because of what happened at that end. It's just showing you how this idea, how it can play out, how it can work in the show. So I thought that was fantastic. I liked the dialogue here. Really enjoyed the designs of the world. When we finally walk out and see the ruins of it all, I thought it was really well constructed by everybody involved in the production design and the set design of this episode as well. And the series so far, I've just really enjoyed the way they've made it feel post-apocalyptic, but in a way that we haven't quite 100% seen before. Even though there are shades of I Am Legend from the Will Smith movie, there are shades of The Walking Dead. When you look at it, there's just something about this that feels a little bit different here this time around that I kind of enjoy and like what we're getting to see here in the show. I also like this idea, again, as I mentioned, the idea of battling hope versus cynicism, hope versus skepticism, hope versus fear, all of it throughout this episode, and certainly starting off with the scientist who was essentially offering no hope, and then Ellie symbolizing the hope, Joel slowly coming around to the hope, Joel, even with his skepticism, having that slowly starting to start to crack a little bit by the end of the episode because of Tess's encouragement, because of him also seeing that Ellie got bit a second time and nothing has happened to her. So he's starting to believe. It's almost like a doubting Thomas type of thing with Jesus, right? Look at my wounds. You see my wounds, Thomas. You see my wounds. I am alive, even though I was crucified. This idea of him, he needs to see it. He's a doubting Thomas in essence, and he needs further proof before he can fully kind of dedicate himself to protecting her and give his loyalty to her. When it comes to the hope thing, I know a lot of people are focused on, the fact that it's to deal with the COVID and COVID vaccine and what we went through, and that feeling of despondency and that feeling of, are we going to ever get back to normal? But I also think, in a way, no matter which, I also think there's symbolism here to be taken with what's going on in our world now. This tribalism, this separation of each other, thinking that the other side has been infected, the other side is in a cult, or the other side has been tricked. The idea that with one side, with the Democrats, think that the Republicans are all under the cult of Trump, and certainly there's some logic to that and some evidence of that. And then on the other side, you see those people, the QAnon, the MAGA people, the Trump people, think that Democrats or progressives have been infected by the idea of Democrats and their ideas of how to do things, and Joe Biden's approach to the thing and all. So you're seeing that there's this idea that things have been infected and there's a separation. You cannot escape the idea of it having real world connections beyond just COVID. And how we're afraid that how the infected, get bit, or see propaganda, see fake news, see a video, see a string of videos, and get seduced or get tricked into believing a certain point of view. So there are real world implications beyond just the easily connectable thing to COVID. And a lot of us live in hope that something is going to come along here to rid us of this infection, rid us of this tribalism, and bring everything back to normal, or at least some semblance of normal that we were used to seeing in years past. So again, these real world connections that I think are operating on such a subtle level here, but I think are there to catch if you're looking for them. We do see the beginnings of this relationship with Joel and Ellie when they're having that conversation, when Tess is going around to clear up some space and open up the door there in that hotel that they're at. Well, we hear about Joel, we hear about Ellie, we hear that Joel is from Texas, that Tess is from Detroit in Michigan, and that Ellie, and we also hear later on how Ellie got infected in that mall and got bit in that mall, and that's how they realized who she was, and that Marlene herself is prepared her, tested her, made sure she was who she was. So, and we also hear that Joel has heard these stories before, and that certain people are uninfected, or certain people are the key to turning things all around. So he's skeptical of it. So I like that he's skeptical. I like that we've heard these stories, because of course people would create these fantasies or these stories, or create this fake news, for lack of a better term, to get people on board to believe certain things. Because once again, throughout this entire episode, the theme it comes back to is this idea of hope. People need to believe these stories to have hope that they can get out of it. People need to believe that some people won't be infected, that there's a way to turn this around. It's the natural thing of human beings. Hope springs eternal in the human breast. This idea that Ellie might symbolize the saving of this world, and Tess telling Joel, if you save her, then everything we've done will be washed away. So there's also this idea, this religious idea of purity, this religious idea of having your sins washed away by the sacrifice of another. So I love that throughout this entire episode. I thought it was really well done. So, well, what did you think about it? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you like the acting? I thought the acting was really well done here as well. Everybody involved doing great. It was always great to see Anna Torv, and sadly we get to lose Anna Torv. I sensed this was coming, and I liked that Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann said in that post-show doc that they fleshed out Tess a little bit more and gave her some more of an emotional connection to this world, to Ellie, and to all of this. So I thought that was a really smart thing for them to do, because Anna Torv is a great actress. So it's fun to have her come in and lay some foundation here and kind of ground this thing over the last 2 episodes, and it's been great to see that. Sadly, though, we lose her, and maybe we'll see her in flashbacks. I don't know, but we'll see what happens now, because now we have Joel and Ellie going into the 3rd episode. It's just those 2. So let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. What stood out to you? What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? What did I miss? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit a like on this video, share it on your social media. Most of all, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so you see we're dropping all the content we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Head on over to Twitch if you want. Follow me there, the Outlaw Nation, all one word, on Twitch. And the Patreon for those of you who want to support everything we got going on the Outlaw Nation, with all the shows we got going on, all the co-hosts, everything we're dropping here on the Outlaw Nation. Would love it if you head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/John Rocha, and see a tier that works for you. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. You know we'll have a Geek Buddies spoiler review of this episode coming up later on this week, and we'll have fun breaking this all down with Michael and Shannon as well. And maybe we'll get some guest stars to come on throughout the season to be part of those reviews as well. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode here on the Outlaw Nation. Peace.